Rain drizzled steadily over Lagos, turning the streets into a blur of grey and horns. Morning traffic pulsed like a restless beast, honking and grumbling under the weight of another day. Amid the chaos, Zara, 17 and slight, leaned heavily on her crutches as she moved along the slick sidewalk. Her uniform clung damply to her legs, but she pressed forward with quiet determination, each step deliberate, each breath sharp with effort. She had a long way to go, and the city never made it easy. As she neared a busy intersection, she noticed a small commotion, a bent old man at the edge of the road, clutching 2 heavy plastic bags, stranded mid-crossing. The traffic surged around him without mercy. Drivers yelled. Pedestrians avoided him like an inconvenience. No one stopped. Zara didn't hesitate. She veered off the curb, crutches clicking against wet asphalt, and limped into the oncoming flow. Horns blared as she navigated between cars, her uniform now streaked with grime. Reaching the man, she shifted her crutch to one side, took one of his bags, and gently placed a hand under his elbow. "Come, sir," she said, her voice soft but firm. "We'll get across together." The old man blinked at her in disbelief, then nodded, humbled. Together they moved, slow and uneven, like a pair of broken clock hands. A final dash, and they reached the far sidewalk just as a Danfo van sped past, splashing brown water over their shoes. The man clutched the rescued bag with shaking hands. Tears welled in his eyes as he looked at her. "God bless you, my child. You don't know what this means." Zara smiled, tired but sincere. "No one is too small to show kindness, sir." She didn't wait for his reply. The moment passed. She turned, crutches clicking again, and disappeared into the rhythm of the street, unaware that the man's eyes followed her with something deeper than gratitude, recognition. Cut to Regal Academy. Gleaming marble floors, polished glass doors, a sprawling modern structure that rose like a fortress above the city's noise. Inside, the hallways were quiet and cold, lined with spotless lockers and expensive sneakers. Zara entered through the side entrance, dripping wet, her hair plastered to her forehead. Her crutches squeaked on the immaculate floor as she made her way to the front desk. The clerk barely concealed her discomfort. Her eyes lingered on the muddy hem of Zara's skirt, the water pooling beneath her feet. She forced a tight-lipped smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Across the hall, whispers flitted like birds. That scholarship girl again. Always looking like she came from a flood. Why does she even bother? Zara heard it all. She didn't flinch. She didn't look back. With her head high and jaw set, she limped past them, soaked to the bone, carrying more dignity than anyone else in the building. Zara had learned early that the world would not wait for her. Born with a congenital defect that left one leg shorter and weaker than the other, she'd spent her childhood moving through life with the steady rhythm of crutches and quiet defiance. Her father used to call her his soldier, saying she marched to the beat of her own courage. But that voice, deep and warm, was silenced years ago when a fire tore through the Apongbon market, claiming dozens of lives, her father's included. Since then, it had been just Zara and Mama Ruth, holding each other up like worn pillars in a storm. Mama Ruth rose before dawn, every day, frying akara by the roadside and selling to passers-by with a practiced smile, saving every naira so her daughter could chase a dream bigger than the slum that raised her. And Zara dreamed, not just of healing her own pain, but of becoming a doctor, someone who could stand in the gap for other children like her, the ones who were never picked for the race but still showed up at the starting line. Regal Academy, with its manicured lawns and high glass walls, had seemed like a miracle when Zara passed the merit scholarship exam. But the miracle soured quickly. From her first day, the message had been clear. She didn't belong, not with her second-hand uniform, not with her crooked walk, not among children whose fathers ran oil companies and mothers held luncheons with senators. Regal's corridors whispered cruelty. Students like Adaora, flawless, wealthy, and vicious, led the social hierarchy with an iron manicure. Daughter of a powerful politician, Adaora regarded Zara like she was a stain on the school's designer fabric. "Crutches!" she'd sneer, not even pretending to whisper. "This is a school, not a hospital." The teachers weren't much better. Some pitied Zara in ways that felt worse than contempt, speaking slowly as if her limp somehow dulled her mind. Others ignored her entirely, their praise reserved for students with the right last names. Zara learned to keep her head down, her notes perfect, her questions ready. She worked twice as hard for half the credit, answering with precision even when her voice trembled. But even excellence wasn't armor thick enough to make her feel seen. If not for Ife, she might have folded under the weight. A boy from the community school nearby, Ife was all sharp edges and fast jokes, always smelling faintly of engine oil and fresh bread. He met Zara years ago at a clinic where both their mothers waited for hours to be seen. Since then, they'd become inseparable. Ife with his loud dreams of becoming an engineer, Zara with her quiet determination to wear a white coat someday. He listened when she needed to vent, fought when she needed defending, and called her Dr. Z with a grin that made her believe it was possible. That morning, after helping the old man, Zara reached Regal with water soaking through her shoes and whispers already clinging to the walls. She kept moving, refusing to shrink, but someone was watching. The old man arrived at Regal Academy not long after. Dressed in plain, clean clothes, his face still damp from the rain, he stood at the school's entrance, unnoticed by most. A security guard nodded vaguely at him, assuming he was just another parent or vendor. No one asked questions. He moved too quietly to draw suspicion, but his eyes, dark and searching, moved deliberately. He saw the girls in sleek braids and polished shoes laughing behind their hands. He saw the boys with car keys dangling from their pockets, swaggering like men. He saw the teachers bustling past without looking up. And then he saw Zara. She was near the stairs, adjusting the straps of her bag with effort, her crutches balanced against the wall. A girl bumped into her on purpose, Adaora, and didn't stop to apologize. Zara didn't flinch, didn't look back. The old man watched her face, the way she clenched her jaw, not in anger, but in restraint. He watched her shoulders, how they carried more than just a backpack, and something in him shifted. No one at Regal noticed the old man that day. Not really. Not yet. But he noticed everything, especially her. The week rolled on with its usual mix of tests, taunts, and tension. Regal Academy buzzed with the usual noise. Midterms looming, prom committees arguing over decor themes, students obsessing over filtered selfie, and whose parents were sponsoring the after-party. So when an official notice went up on the digital board that the school's elusive founder and owner, Chief Benson Aroha, was returning after a 2-year medical leave, barely anyone blinked. To the students, he was a name on the brochure, a face in an oil painting near the library. Whatever legend he carried was buried under layers of school gossip and social media. The teachers exchanged glances, murmuring their surprise, but said little else. It was an unusual move, but in Regal, power moved quietly, and no one dared ask too many questions. Then came the Thursday assembly. The entire school gathered in the auditorium, students seated in precise rows, uniforms starched, and expressions bored. Zara sat near the back, beside the other scholarship students. She shifted uncomfortably, her crutches leaning against her seat, her mind already drifting to her biology note. On stage, the principal gave the usual dry speech about discipline and excellence before clearing his throat and stepping aside. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Benson Iroha. The doors at the back opened, and the room fell into a confused hush. The old man who entered wasn't dressed in the crisp agbada of a tycoon or the stiff suit of a school executive. He wore a simple kaftan, walking with a slow grace that commanded attention rather than demanded it. His face, deeply lined but alert, swept over the crowd with quiet authority. Zara's breath caught. Her eyes widened. It was him, the man from the street, the one with the plastic bags and the trembling hands, the man she had helped without knowing who he was. He approached the microphone with no ceremony, let the silence stretch just long enough to hold the room, then spoke, not with a booming voice, but with the calm confidence of someone who didn't need to shout to be heard. "This school," he said, scanning the rows of polished children, "was not built to polish egos. It was built on something far more valuable: compassion, discipline, service. Somewhere along the way we lost that." A few students exchanged uncomfortable glances. Adaora rolled her eyes. The teachers stood stiffly at the sides, not sure where this was going. "I have returned," Chief Benson continued, "not to resume old routines, but to remind Regal Academy of its purpose. Effective today, I will be stepping in as interim headmaster until further notice. Gasps fluttered through the room. One teacher actually dropped his clipboard. The principal's mouth opened, then closed again. Chief Benson didn't flinch. He smiled faintly. There will be changes, not in dress codes or parties, but in values, in how we treat one another. The soul of this school is not its building, it is its people. Zara felt her stomach twist. She didn't know why, but something was shifting, something big. Later that afternoon, as students swirled with speculation, and Adaora loudly mocked the return of the old dinosaur, Zara was summoned to the administrative office. She stiffened as the clerk handed her the slip. Her hands went clammy. Had someone reported her? Was she in trouble for being late that morning? For using the back entrance again? She limped toward the headmaster's office, heart pounding in her chest like a drum. The secretary waved her in without a word. Chief Benson sat behind a wide desk, a cup of steaming tea by his elbow. He looked up, and his face softened into a smile. "Come in, Zara." Her name, spoken gently, startled her more than if he'd yelled it. She stepped inside, her voice caught in her throat. "Sir, am I in trouble?" He chuckled softly. "No, child, not at all. Sit, please." She obeyed, perching at the edge of the chair, her crutches beside her like guards. He studied her for a moment, then said, "You helped an old man cross the street, risked yourself. You didn't know who I was. You didn't ask." Zara blinked. You looked like you needed help, and you gave it," he said, voice thickening with emotion. "In this entire school, you were the only one who did. You reminded me of the kind of person I used to be, and the kind of place this school was meant to be." She didn't know what to say. Chief Benson leaned forward slightly, eyes holding hers. "Your days of being invisible in this school are over, Zara." The words hung in the air like a promise, like a shift in gravity, and for the first time in a long while, Zara felt the weight she carried ease, just a little. Regal Academy began to shift, subtly at first. Under Chief Benson's quiet but firm leadership, the school's culture started to bend away from its polished cruelty. The new headmaster introduced morning reflections on empathy. He changed grading rubrics to reward teamwork and peer support. He opened lunchroom seating, insisting that no student should eat alone. Most shocking of all, he launched a mentorship initiative for underprivileged students. Zara among the first selected. She was given permission to volunteer in the school clinic, shadowing the nurse and helping other students with minor injuries. For the first time, she walked through the halls with a sliver of dignity. Some teachers greeted her by name. A few students even asked for help with homework, unsure if it was suddenly acceptable to be seen talking to her. Zara, cautious and steady, did not let it go to her head, but her tired eyes carried a new light. She was working toward her dream. It was fragile, but it was hers. Not everyone was pleased. Adaora watched the changes unfold with growing fury. Her father, a powerful senator and longtime donor to the school, had used his influence to ensure his daughter never heard the word no. Now, this old man, who walked like a relic and talked like a preacher, was dismantling her kingdom. Worse still, he seemed to favor Zara. Zara, with her limp and patched shoes and pitiful smile. Zara, who had no name, no power, no legacy. Rumors swirled quickly, seeded by Adaora's careful whispers in the girls' bathroom and private chats during lunch. "It's obvious, isn't it?" she said, her voice syrup-sweet and sharp as broken glass. "Zara's getting all this attention because she's sleeping with the new headmaster. I mean, come on. Why else would an old man suddenly care about a poor cripple girl?" It spread like fire. The mentorship program was suddenly tainted by gossip. Zara noticed the change in her classmates' stares, no longer mocking, but leering, accusatory. Even some of the teachers, once warm, became guarded, and Ify, her anchor, her oldest friend, grew distant. He stopped walking her to the school gate. He laughed nervously when she mentioned the clinic work. When she finally confronted him, he looked away, shame in his eyes. "Zara, people are talking. My mum said I shouldn't get involved. I'm sorry." The words hit harder than any insult. Zara felt something inside her shrink. At home, things weren't much better. She returned one evening to find Mama Ruth seated on the floor, her scarf pulled low over her face, shoulders shaking. The landlord had come that morning, banging on the door with threats of eviction. Rent was overdue again. The Akara business had slowed, And what little Zara could save from her transport allowance wasn't enough. Mama Ruth begged for patience, but there was none to be had. "I'll find something," Zara whispered, her throat burning. "I'll work, I'll quit the clinic, maybe even school." The words tasted bitter in her mouth, but she meant them. What was the point of chasing a future if the roof over their heads was collapsing? The next day, Zara arrived at school hollow-eyed, dragging herself through her classes. She kept her head down, trying not to listen to the snickers that followed her from room to room. During her chemistry exam, she placed her crutches neatly beside her desk, as she always did. When the bell rang for a short break between papers, she returned to find them gone. At first, she thought someone had moved them. Then she saw the looks, the smug smiles, the half-hidden phones. Panic clawed its way into her chest. She searched under tables, between chairs, near the hallway. Nothing. Then the whispers began again. "She's crawling now. Is that her new thing? Maybe Chief Benson likes her better on her knees." Zara's face flushed with humiliation. Her legs trembled as she lowered herself to the floor, trying to keep her balance. The exam was about to start again, and no one was helping. No teachers moved. No prefects intervened. She tried to drag herself forward, nails scraping the tiled floor, tears blurring her vision. A cruel laugh rang out. Adaora's voice. "Come on, Zara, show us how bad you want your scholarship." A student recorded it all. By the end of the day, the video had gone viral, not just in the school, but online. Cripple Girl Crawl Challenge trended on students' private WhatsApp groups. The clip showed Zara on the ground, eyes wide with shame, framed by jeering classmates. It was cut to look like she was performing, like it was all a joke. No one saw the pain. No one cared about the truth, until Chief Benson saw it. He sat in his office late that evening, watching the footage in silence. His hands clenched, his jaw tightened, but it wasn't just anger in his eyes. It was heartbreak, because in Zara's face, he saw a world that hadn't changed enough, a world that still punished goodness and glorified cruelty. And he realized then that this was no longer about policy changes or soft speeches. It was about standing up against a culture that had allowed this to happen and making sure it never did again. The town hall was called without warning. An official notice blasted through the school's app. Emails were sent to every parent, and by the following afternoon, the Regal Academy auditorium, rarely filled except for graduation and gala nights, was packed to its ornate rafters. Parents in designer sunglasses, teachers in their finest Ankara and suits, students buzzing with confusion and rumour. Some whispered that a donor had pulled out. Others said the headmaster was resigning. Adaora sat in the front row, calm and smug, legs crossed like a queen awaiting tribute. Zara stood in the back, half hidden behind a pillar, her crutches steady beneath her arm, heart thudding like a drum in her chest. Chief Benson stepped onto the stage with no ceremony, no introductory speech, no long greeting. He walked to the centre, picked up a small remote, and clicked. The giant screen behind him flickered to life, and there it was. The video of Zara crawling across the cold floor of the chemistry hall, her face etched with desperation and pain. The jeers, the laughter, the silence of the teachers. The auditorium fell deathly quiet. Parents sat frozen. Teachers shifted in their seats. Some students gasped. Others couldn't meet Zara's eyes. Then came another clip, security footage this time from an overhead hallway camera. Adaora whispering to two boys, handing one an envelope. Moments later, they snuck into the exam room and slipped away with the crutches. Another angle showed Adaora watching it unfold, smiling. The silence cracked. A parent muttered, "My God!" Chief Benson stepped forward. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of thunder. "This," he said, gesturing to the screen, "is what Regal Academy has become. A place where cruelty is currency, where silence is safety, where we protect privilege and punish integrity." Adaora leapt to her feet. "This is outrageous. My father..." Benson raised a hand. "Your father's money does not excuse your wickedness, Adaora." Gasps rippled through the hall. He continued, eyes scanning the room. "I built this school decades ago, not to be a palace for the powerful, but a haven for potential. I was born with a spinal condition, walked with braces till I was 15. I was mocked, spat on, forgotten by my own teachers. I swore that if I ever found success, I'd build something better, a place where children could rise not because of wealth or last name, but because of heart, of effort, of character. His voice cracked, then steadied. But somewhere along the way, Regal lost its soul, and so did I. I left, defeated by the machine I had created. I thought it couldn't be fixed. Until he turned toward the wings of the stage. Until a girl with broken shoes and quiet strength helped me across the street without knowing who I was. That moment reminded me what this school was meant to stand for. He turned to Adora. Effective immediately, Adaora Okoye, you are expelled from Regal Academy. And to the teachers who saw this video, or worse, saw it happen in real time, and did nothing, your suspension letters are waiting in your inboxes. Shock thundered across the auditorium. A few students began to clap, quietly at first, then louder. Adaora stood frozen, her mouth opening and closing, before storming out with her mother in tow. Benson raised his hand for silence again. One more thing. He turned to the crowd and called, Zara Ibrahim, please come forward. Zara froze. Her hands trembled around her crutches. Slowly, painfully, she limped down the center aisle. Every eye followed her, but there were no sneers now, no laughter, just breathless silence. When she reached the stage, Chief Benson looked at her with a gentle smile. For your courage, your compassion, and your integrity in the face of relentless cruelty, I am appointing you as Regal Academy's new student ambassador. You will represent the heart of this school from now on, not its vanity. Zara's mouth fell open. Tears spilled down her cheeks, unbidden. And, he added, his voice softening, the Regal Foundation will cover full housing and living expenses for your family, indefinitely. Your mother will never fear eviction again. The room erupted, not with noise, but with stunned stillness. A few students openly wept. Several teachers lowered their heads in shame. Mama Ruth, seated near the back, pressed a hand to her mouth, sobbing silently. Zara turned toward the crowd, tears streaming freely now. She had spent so long shrinking herself, folding into corners, surviving, and now, for the first time, she stood at the center, seen, honored, whole. Chief Benson placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice clear and unwavering. This school will change, because she reminded us what we were supposed to be. The air felt different when Zara walked through the gates of Regal Academy that Monday morning. The same halls that once echoed with whispers and ridicule now greeted her with a quiet reverence. Students paused their conversations. Some smiled nervously, others stepped aside with genuine respect. And then, as she limped toward the main steps, leaning on her crutches with grace and confidence, a round of applause broke out. It started with a few claps, hesitant, uncertain, then grew into a standing ovation. Zara froze, unsure if she was dreaming, but it was real. For the first time in her life at Regal, she wasn't invisible. She wasn't mocked. She was seen, truly seen, for her strength, not her scars. She made her way inside, still blinking back tears, when she saw Ify waiting by her locker. He looked smaller than she remembered, nervous, regretful. His eyes found hers, full of apology. Zara, he said, voice low but earnest. I was wrong. I should have stood by you. I let fear make me quiet. But you were always the strongest person in the room. I was just too scared to stand beside you. Zara studied him for a moment, then nodded, her voice calm and firm. Sometimes pain shows us who deserves to heal with us. She didn't say it to punish him, but because she meant it. And Ify, heart stung but grateful, nodded with understanding. It wasn't an instant return to friendship, but it was a start. Chief Benson moved swiftly in the days that followed. He announced the creation of a new student leadership council, one that wasn't based on grades or lineage, but on service, integrity, and ideas. Zara was appointed head of the Diversity and Wellness Committee, a position crafted for her to lead programs that would redefine the school's culture. She began workshops on kindness and inclusion, initiated peer mentorship groups, and advocated for disability access in every school facility. Her once ignored voice now shaped policy, and people listened. The school changed, not overnight but meaningfully. Teachers held themselves accountable. Cliques began to dissolve. The scholarship students found new confidence, and even the elite kids began to unlearn their old superiority. Zara didn't demand respect, she inspired it. And in her quiet way, she helped others find their courage too. Outside the school gates, another transformation took root. Where a weathered tray of akara once balanced on a stool, a small, beautiful kiosk now stood, painted in cheerful colours, bearing a wooden sign that read, Mama Ruth's Kitchen. The food smelled richer than ever, and students lined up during lunch breaks to buy her spicy snacks. Mama Ruth, proud in her apron, greeted each child with warmth and laughter, never mentioning that the license, permits, and setup had been quietly funded by Chief Benson himself. He never said a word about it. He didn't need to. And Zara, she still limped. She still carried her crutches, but she walked taller than ever before. Her pain had not disappeared, but it had birthed purpose. She no longer tried to shrink in the shadows. She was no longer just the girl with the crutches. She was the girl who had changed Regal Academy, and who, perhaps, would change much more. The sun cast a golden glow over the Regal Academy courtyard as students, parents, and faculty gathered for the graduation ceremony. Among the sea of navy gowns and fluttering programs, Zara stood tall at the edge of the stage, her cap perfectly placed, her gown swaying gently in the breeze. No crutches, just a sleek, custom-made leg brace beneath her robe, supporting each step as she made her way to the podium with quiet strength. The crowd hushed as she approached, not out of pity, but out of awe. In the front row, Chief Benson sat with his back straight and his eyes shimmering, one hand wrapped around Mama Ruth's, who dabbed her cheeks with a handkerchief, smiling with pride that reached beyond words. Zara adjusted the microphone, took a breath, and spoke with steady grace. I used to think that having a disability meant I had to walk behind everyone else, that I would always be late to the finish line, always just out of reach. She paused, scanning the crowd. But that day on the road, when I helped someone without knowing who he was, I learned something powerful. Kindness moves faster than legs. It reaches the heart before anything else can. The audience was silent, moved. Some parents clutched their children a little closer. Some students wiped their eyes. Benson lowered his head for a moment, breathing deeply. As the ceremony ended, tassels were turned and caps tossed. The screen cut to a quiet shot of the school gates. A new student, small, nervous, seated in a wheelchair, rolled slowly up the slope. The doors to Regal Academy loomed ahead. Then they opened gently, and Zara stood there, holding one side open with a smile that welcomed without words. Her voice came over as a soft voiceover. When the world tells you you don't belong, tell it, I am already building a new one. Fade out.